everybody and welcome to the Apollo 11 anniversary video. Today is the 46th anniversary of the moon landing, the first time any human being ever set foot on another celestial body instead of Earth. And of course, as well, probably everyone who ever played Kerbal Space Program, I decided to make a replica of that mission. And compared to the real Saturn V rocket, this thing here, well, it looks a little bit measly, but it gets the job done and it gets the astronauts, in this case not Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins, to the moon, but it's Valentina, Jebediah and Bob Kerman. And as you can see here, I'm a little bit too aggressive in my ascent, but here is me hoping that it will still be a success. But for once more I underestimated Kerbal physics, as you can see here. Yeah, that was not supposed to happen. But fortunately, the crew survived. So this posed an excellent test for the launch escape system and also of the re-entry capabilities of the command module, which is now on a suborbital trajectory back to Earth, or Kerbin rather in this case. So we're tumbling back down, a little bit of heat, nothing big in this case, nothing to be worried about. But still some ablator is coming off, but that's nothing compared to what the thing will have to endure when it is submitted to the forces of re-entry from the moon. But that will happen at a later time, because we have to launch again, and this time not only did I add a little more struts, I also tried to keep my thrust to weight ratio lower than 2 or around 2 right before stage separation. Here we go, stage has separated, and now we ascend further to the skies. Of course, this rocket, even though quite smaller then the Saturn V, is still way too powerful. I could get to the moon, I think, with this second stage. Oh, maybe not, but yeah. The trajectory is okay. Still, we have to do some minor adjustments because our projected orbit is a little bit too far away from the surface of the moon. And the earlier we do the correction, the more efficient it is. But now it's time for the third and final stage before the lunar modules themselves will be in service. But here we have to deal with a little bit of Kerbal Space Program's quirks, or bugs rather in this case, because as you can see in the top left corner, engine cannot be activated while stowed, because the program still thinks that the engine is inside of that fairing that we just came out of. So I have to do a little trick to, well, make it think that it is already outside of it. So I have to get back to the Space Center, go to some other craft somewhere with a control module, because it would not help to switch to the debris behind us, and then get back to the craft and reactivate the engines, and this time it works. So it's time to do one more correction burn, and then we're almost ready to transfer to the moon. Well, not yet, because first we have to get the lunar module out of the fairing. So doing the correction burn, looking good, almost an equatorial orbit. And then doing some better positioning so you can see better what's going on. First we open the top fairing, boom, Then, of course, as was the case with the Apollo 11 mission, the service module, the command service module, exits the fairing, the space the fairing left, so to speak. So we still have our engine shrouded by the decoupler, but that doesn't matter. Instead, it's rather fortuitous, because, well, you will see in a few seconds what I mean with that. First, we have to turn it around and make the docking ports face each other. There we go, and then... boom! I'm using the ejection force of the decoupler to propel me towards the lunar module. So I'm saving a little bit of RCS because I did not take any extra tanks with me. That 15 or something units that are in the command module are the only amount of RCS fuel that I bring with myself. So the next decoupler has been engaged. We are pulling ourselves out of the fairing. There we go. The lander in all its glory. Of course, as with the real Apollo 11, it has two stages, a descent stage and an ascent stage. And we will try them out very soon, but first we have to circularize our orbit. Then we will do some corrections, because there is a very special place that I want to land in honor of the occasion, that historic event that took place on July 20th, 1969. An event that was broadcast over the entire world. Everybody saw it, at least everybody with a TV and time on their hands to watch it. And we're already in the sphere of influence of the moon. And then we have to engage our engine to make some minor correction to our inclination. And then, yeah, that looks good. And then circularize it. Yeah, me playing around with maneuver nodes. Oh, if the Apollo guys had that technology back then, wouldn't that have been great? Just look at the moon, move your mouse a little bit, and then boom, you're in orbit. Of course, it's a lot harder if you're out there and if you're trying to do it yourself. Coincidentally, the Apollo 13 mission, which became famous through the Tom Hanks film, this was the closest they got to the moon. They slingshotted around it and then went back to Earth. So at least they got to see the moon, which is more than, well, 99.9% of Earth's population can say of themselves. So we're circularizing here. Almost done. We got enough delta V to do this and also to get back to Earth. I'm saying Earth all the time. Kerbin, of course. This is not the real solar system, which I tried, by the way, and failed horrifically, which you will see at the end of the video, or well, parts of it anyway, because I want to spare you my embarrassment, or spare myself the embarrassment. So now we're in orbit around the moon, and now it's time for a special interruption. Okay, so that was the fun part. Now back to business. No disrespect to Neil Armstrong, huge respect to the guy. This was just some fun in good faith, I hope. So we're now on the dark side of the moon. And, well, at least at the time. And now we're back in the lander. We put Valentina and Bob into the lander. And then it's time to find the correct place to land, which is in that huge crater you see there, because there is a special thingy that squad put there and I want to visit it. So here we go, setting up my maneuver nodes, setting up, so to speak, the node where I will brake, and then already putting up the landing gear because, well, why not? There's no aerodynamics involved on the moon, of course, and yeah, so better have it out now than when it's too late when you try to touch down. That single LV909 engine is burning fuel slowly but steadily, and you can see it slightly in the background where I want to go, but I overshot and I thought, oh, that's not so far, I can EVA there. Can I? Can't I? Well, I have no choice because I don't have enough fuel left for another transition over there. So we touch down and we have our Kerbals on the moon. Of course, not the first Kerbals I ever landed on the moon, but well, maybe the 115th or something. And now Valentina is exiting the vehicle as the first one. Yeah, in real life, of course, Neil Armstrong was the one who came down the ladder and said those famous words, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." And if you listen closely to the voice recording, you really can tell he was nervous or at least exhausted or something like that. But anyways, time to get to our real destination. So Valentina Kerman gets out her EVA pack and slides over to her destination, which is of course the memorial site. Of course, maybe I could have quick loaded and tried again, but well, what the heck. We're getting closer, and our EVA fuel is getting less and less, so I decided to walk the last few miles after having Valentina take a little spin. So jump, girl, and get over there. Some of you may remember my video Valentina Kerman is the Kraken. There was some similar situation involved where Valentina would not stop spinning across the ground. So, yeah. I made a little fun about that, but in this case, I just tried to walk over there, and you can see here there's some strange things happening when using 4x time acceleration. So I just skipped that thing in the editing for your viewing pleasure. And we're now at the monument, and this actually is my first time visiting this. In honor of the Apollo 11 landing, I thought, well, it's about damn time to visit this thing, and here I am, the Neil Armstrong Memorial Site on the moon in Kerbal Space Program, 1930 to 2012. That's how long the guy lived, and his name will be forever remembered for being the first human being on another celestial body, which is an achievement that, well, I think the only one who will ever top it will be the guy who, or girl, who will put his or her foot on Mars. And by the way, I think it would be really cool if it would be a woman. So we're trying to get back with only half our EVA fuel, and I failed miserably, so yeah, a lot of walking was involved. But in the end I came back to the lunar module, got back in, and then it was time to lift off. well, unfortunately I forgot to turn off the descent module engine, but no worries. But here we go. The ascent stage gets into the moon's orbit. We're using 3 engines instead of 1, but there's also, you know, the reason that if I put an engine in the middle and then the decoupler, then it would, well, it would become very tall, and I would not have liked it, because I like to have my things compact and, well, nice to look at, to be honest. So setting my circularization burn. Maybe there's a chance to rendezvous as well, but no dice. But fortunately, the orbiting part went okay, and we have our service module, which has enough fuel left to make the rendezvous point. There we go, looking good. Then we have to warp there. One more lap around that little gray ball in space. Then some small burn to adjust our velocity to the target. And look, we have an antenna. We've totally forgot about that, didn't we? Well, we didn't need it as well, so who cares? And now it's time to dock these two things together. Fortunately, we did not go moon sledding with this example of the ascent module. So we have a docking port that we can utilize to get it together with the service module. So no emergency EVA needed to get it, to get the crew over to the command module. And imaginary blue Danube vaults here. In real life, docking would be even slower. Kerbal Space Program is already pretty quick about those docking maneuvers. The real docking maneuvers, they take ages. So I really laughed loud in Interstellar, where they have those docking maneuvers. They were like 10 times the speed of this. So it was really ludicrous, one of those, well, things of Interstellar that they did not get right. But overall, I really enjoyed that movie and I liked it a lot. And Jebediah also gets out in space to, well, to make himself a fool outside of the lunar module and wave inside and, well, so to speak, take a nice family picture for his Kerb book site, if such a thing exists. So back to the module, and then time to transfer our astronauts or Kerbonauts to the command and service module. Undock the ascent stage that will now be forever in the lunar orbit. Now it's time to do our final burn to get into Kerbin's atmosphere and hopefully safely to the ground. But I have to do some adjustments here because I realized I would have crashed into the moon. So no biggie. That happens a lot to me. Do you know that? Every time, or a lot of times, when I try to get away from a planet to another planet or to orbit or something, I set a maneuver node and it looks really good, and then I'll take a closer look and it would take me really through the planet. So yeah, one of those things I always have to watch out for. And now we are on our way home. So Periapse looks deep enough to get us breaking into the atmosphere. So it's time to go home and time warp. Well, being careful with that, because if I time warp too fast, I would skip through the atmosphere and then have to try again. So will this be enough for us to get down to the surface? I don't know. The atmosphere already pushing the decoupler back towards the command module. And whoops. Whoa, that was close. Also the service module part. And we're feeling the heat here. And yes, our apoapse is reduced very, very quickly. the ablator as well, but we're still in the safe zone. Some more apoaps reducing, but, well, it seems like we have to do a second pass. So there you go. Another victory lap around Kerbin for this successful crew of the Apollo 11 replica mission. Which is of course a lot easier than in real solar systems or realism overhaul, which I have to honestly say is, well, not as enjoyable for me as a stock Kerbal Space Program. This is no disrespect to any of you guys who did realism overhaul, Nathan Kell or anyone who, if you're listening, mad respect to you guys for doing realism overhaul and real solar system. I realize what tremendous amount of work went into that. I just have to admit it's not my cup of tea, sorry. I like to escape in my fantasy world. Or in Squad's fantasy world in this case. And look at that! It's not the ocean, but it is water! So we're a little bit closer to the original Apollo 11 ending, which of course landed in, I think it was the Pacific Ocean. Yeah, it was the Pacific Ocean. And yeah, there we go! We have successfully finished an Apollo 11 recreation in Kerbal Space Program. One of many on YouTube or Imager or anyone else for that case. But I mentioned real solar system before, or realism overhaul, and yes, I really tried it. I used this already pre-built Apollo 11 rocket, which I discovered after I tried to build it myself, which I, well, managed as well, but then why use mine? There's already some pre-prepared version of it. And the real kicker about this was, first of all, it takes ages to get into orbit, so you really get some appreciation for how hard space really is. And of course you have those, well, inconveniences, like only 3 ignitions per engine in this case, and you also have to have some momentum for the fuel to slosh to the back of the craft, so it actually is in the fuel lines, so you can start the engine at all. I've failed in that regard many times. And sorry about the nighttime docking procedure, but this is the part where I tried to get the lunar module out of the fairing, which I actually managed, because docking in realism overhaul is not that much different from the stock version. But, well, once again, sorry for the darkness. I tried to match my launch inclination to the moon's, the real moon's orbital inclination, and that's why it took me to the dark side of, in this case, Earth, not Kerbin. So that's why it looked like this. And I'm really sorry that I did not manage to get a realism overhaul mission to the moon and back, because I did not have time to finish it until July 20th. Well, maybe next year. Until then, I only leave you with this shot of that beautiful recreation of the Apollo program's vehicles by the Father Part mod. Really great work on that, and yeah, maybe next year. Until then, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.